I played Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma for over 30 hours and I can't put it down. As y'all know, this was one of my most anticipated RPGs of 2025, and I'm so glad that I got to partner with Marvelous so I can not only play it early, but also break down the game for you. By the end of this video, I will answer all your questions that you've asked me, and I'm gonna show you my experience on both PC and Nintendo Switch. Thank you, Marvelous, for sponsoring today's video. And a lot of you asked, so I'm gonna deliver. Tomorrow, June 6th, I will be streaming the game on Nintendo Switch too, so make sure you squish the like and subscribe buttons if you want to see how it performs there. Keep in mind that the majority of the footage in this video are gonna be from the PC version, but don't worry, I've included a dedicated segment to show you how it runs on the Nintendo Switch. The game opens up with the option to choose one of the protagonists, Subaru or Kaguya. While you can change your name, you cannot alter how you look. Then you choose your birthday. I'm a June 3rd girly, so I went with the 3rd of summer, and yes, that means my birthday was 2 days ago. I turned 30, and what a wonderful way to enjoy my 30th than all of these amazing games that we've been playing. Anyways, many of you told me in my preview video that you're new to Rune Factory, so you were worried about the combat's difficulty. So let me reassure you that you can choose story mode, which eases you into combat and it makes the game easier. There's also a balance mode, which is the intended difficulty and the one that I went with. Finally, we have a difficult mode for those of you who are experienced with action RPGs and don't mind sweating a little bit. As usual, we keep the story spoiler-free here. Basically, you're gonna become the chief of the 4 villages that you unlock as you help the villagers overcome the blight. Along the way, you're gonna meet quirky characters like different seasons gods, which have been seen in many trailers. You're gonna meet Itaken Woolby, who has a lot of lore behind him, quirky bachelors and bachelorettes, and interesting characters overall. The story is full of twists and turns, with moments that made me laugh out loud and other moments that had me on the edge of my seat. The writing is pretty good and entertaining, so you're in for a treat. Speaking of the villages, you have 4 of them. Each represents one of the 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn, and winter. They're all very distinct from each other, and they have their respective wild areas where you can venture off and explore. Traveling to these villages is so cool, so I can't wait for you to play the game and see how. And of course, you can still fast travel if that's what you want to do. However, there is one, little way that you can visit them, which was pretty surprising to me because I had no idea we could do it. Anyways, you can also fast travel to various shrines, which you're gonna find plenty of them, and you can use your sacred fan to sprint faster, as well as ride monsters that you have tamed. Now, one thing that I mentioned in a lot of the videos where I covered Guardians of Azuma, or I was talking about it and mentioning it, is that I was really worried that the world is gonna feel empty and boring, and the world is more so semi-open than completely open. Areas are relatively small, but they're packed with monsters to fight, shrines to get recipes and resources from, mines to collect from, wilted trees to restore and chop wood, bosses to fight, these targets that you can shoot with a bow and get rewards for, or these holes in the floor that you drop onigiri in and get prizes in exchange for, to name a few. There's always something that you're gonna be collecting or gathering or finding, and that makes grinding and leveling up your characters fun and engaging. However, one thing I noticed in some areas is that the grass and the sand are not that detailed when compared to the decorations and some of the buildings. So you're gonna notice that when you're exploring. In terms of the basic things that you're gonna be looking after when playing, you have this bar here, which is your HP bar. You also have this bar, which represents your RP, otherwise known as rune points. And you also have these spirit bars as well. When you get your party, you can also view their level and health over here. Now, HP is to be taken care of when dealing with enemies. RP is for using your sacred weapons, which grant you special abilities. In this wheel here, you can see the sacred drum, sacred sword, sacred fan, and parasol. These will grant you some sick moves to use in combat, but they're also used to get rid of the blight and restore trees. So for example, this drum dance will help trees grow again, so you can chop them down for resources. As for the blight, you'll notice they have different colors, and each one will need a specific sacred weapon. One thing to note is that sleep is very important. After 12 AM, you're gonna start losing both HP and RP. After 5 AM, you will pass out And both of these will result in some penalties to the results of your daily result sheet. So anytime that you go to bed, you're gonna see this sheet that gives you an idea of how your day went, and it shows you the XP that you have earned. This XP is used in your skill tree. So you have the XP number that's on the top. This is the skill-specific XP, whereas the XP at the bottom is for the general one. So when you go to a category to level it up, you can use the dedicated XP for it, which is generated by doing that specific activity. So let me give you an example. Using the short sword will give you short sword specific XP. Doing social activities is gonna give you XP for social activities. Using the sacred drum is gonna give you sacred drum XP, etc. But if you run out of these skill specific XP, then you can resort to the points that you have in the general XP number to help you out. These are also used in this general skill tree tab as well. You're gonna find plenty of skills that you can try and play around with, and a lot of them are gonna change the tide of battle. So experimenting with them feels very satisfying, whereas some other skills are more so passive stat boosts. I was really happy to see that combat is fluid, fast, and fun. Timing your dodges for a perfect dodge slows down time and it gives you more room to deal extra damage. You have different weapon types to choose from, so you have a short sword, it's quick, but it has short range. A dual blade is for quick attacks, where each hit is gonna give you double damage, but it's gonna have pretty poor knockback, so it's not gonna send enemies flying. A two-handed sword is slow, but it deals massive damage, while the bow and the talisman are great for long-range combat. You can have two weapons at the same time, and you can switch between them by using the D-pad. My favorite combo right now is the dual blades as my primary weapon and the talisman as a secondary weapon. The dual blades let me do some quick attacks on the enemy in close range, and then I just dodge backwards and spam the enemy with the talisman, and it's so fun and satisfying. But that's not all. Remember the sacred weapons that we talked about? You can use all of them in combat, and you can switch between them pretty quickly. These have some fun abilities to unlock from the skill tree. For example, the drum is great for healing yourself and your party, the sword is excellent for dealing fire damage, the fan sends strong winds at your enemy to knock down their HP, while the parasol uses water to deal damage. By hitting the enemy, you build up these spirit bars, and then you can use a sacred weapon's special ability to deal some devastating attacks. Of course, enemies have elemental weaknesses, and using them against them will give you an advantage on the battlefield, but don't forget they can still do the same as well and inflict some effects on you, like paralyzing you or poisoning you. Some areas will be closed off with this purple wall, and the way to proceed to the next part is by defeating all enemies. Within dungeons and when exploring, you're gonna come across bonfires where you can cook some food and move things around between your inventory and your storage box. One thing that bothered me is how cooked dishes don't stack up. It makes sense to not stack up dishes of different levels, but those of the same level should stack up just like crops do. So this added an inconvenience that was pretty unnecessary. Hopefully the devs will reconsider this and release a quality of life patch for it. Apart from that, you can save by using this dragon statue, which also acts as a warp point for fast travel. You also unlock these rune lanterns, which help you regenerate some of your RP for free. When dealing with boss enemies, they have a stun gauge, which you can see over here. By executing attacks on the boss, you build this gauge, and once it fills up, your following attacks will finally start to chop at the boss's HP. Taking these bosses down kept me on my toes, and experimenting to find what elements and weapons they are weak to made me feel more strategic, so I had to not only hack and slash my way through them, but also think about what is gonna cause the most damage to them. So this doesn't let me just button mash. I had to dodge, I had to try to also get perfect dodges, I had to balance my HP, as well as my RP, as well as my party's health by using my inventory to quickly consume food or medicine, all while keeping my eye out on the spirit bars to execute my sacred weapons abilities. It might sound like it's a lot, and it kind of is, but once you get used to it, it's very fun, and within like half an hour, you're gonna get the hang of it anyways. One thing to note though, when in combat, I noticed that the camera can get in some wonky places, so it caught me off guard at times, but thankfully it didn't trigger any of my motion sickness. And of course, this is not going to be a Rune Factory game without monster taming. To tame a monster, you use the Bond of Dance by using your Sacred Branch, and then you're going to see the smiley face pop up on top of the monster. What you're going to do next is attack the monster until you deplete its health, and then you can offer it different gifts. Once it accepts your gift, you can tame it. Some monsters are rideable, others are not, and these monsters can be sent to the barns that you've placed down in your various villages, and they will produce resources for you. Each monster will require a specific amount of space in your barn, so you're gonna need to keep an eye out and make sure you build enough barns to house as many as you want. While adventuring, you can get a party of 3 to join you. Every party member is skilled at something, so Suzu is a great debuffer, Murasame is a great attacker, Ulalaka is excellent for healing, and so on. And they all have their own stats as well. The more that you adventure with these members, the higher their level will become. But you're also gonna have to keep an eye on their health so you make sure that they stay alive. You do so by using medicine or food that you've cooked, or you can use your sacred drum. Some recipes will give you extra RP for your own character as well as buffs, and you can also change your party's equipment so they get stronger, and the same applies to you. You can upgrade and change your gear and accessories, and you can even choose if you want the appearance to change as well, or if you only want the stats without changing how you look. I wish we can unlock full armor sets though. So far, I only seem to unlock swimsuits, whereas most outfits are probably gonna be DLC locked. Next up, what about farming? So in the villages that you unlock, you use your Terra Tiller to go into building mode. This is where you can create fields to plant crops and you can terraform. And you do so, by the way, by calling Wooby. Not only that, but you can also place buildings and decorations. In terms of farming, once you place down a field, you can plant crops, then you're gonna need to water them and wait for harvest. Here you can also use your sacred weapons to help you out, but they will use up your RP. For example, the fan lets you harvest multiple crops at once, the parasol lets you water crops fast, the drum can be used once a day to make the crop grow faster, and the sword's flame will harvest one crop at a time, but give you a higher level seed in exchange. Now, because all of that uses RP, as we mentioned, you can eat food to restore it or use the rune shrines, but you can also restore it by sleeping or going to the baths. Each crop has a specific season that it prefers to be planted in to give you a better yield, but you can still grow crops in a village even if it does not correspond to its favorite season, and you can still harvest it. In these villages, you can also terraform. You're gonna need to ask Woolby to make different terrain tiles for you, so he can create the fields for your crops, he can create paths, waterways, rice paddies, hills, etc. And then things like bridges and stairs can be made at the carpenter by using various materials and gold. As you work on your villages, you can rank them up, which means that you have more space for villagers to move in, more development zones to build on, as well as new decorations and recipes to build. There's an element of micromanaging here which breaks you away from combat and exploration, and it makes it a really relaxing time to simply unwind. Every villager who moves can be hired to do different jobs, and they have different traits which determines what they're gonna be good at. Villagers can, on their own, find their way to one of your villages, or they can be obtained by defeating monsters and turning them back to their human form, and you can also move these villagers between different villages if you want to. Now, these are essential because they can help you farm, mine, chop wood, herd the monsters that you tamed, fish, and run the many businesses you can open. Oh, and by the way, you can fish as well, and I'm happy to report that fishing is pretty easy. Back to the villagers, hiring them comes at a cost, where you're gonna need to make sure that they're happy, that they have a home, and that they are well fed. To see the progress of your village, you can use this tab to get a better look, and I love that you can ask Woolby for a report where he can tell you what needs to be done better, and that takes out the guesswork. So if you're new to management games and you usually get overwhelmed by them, I promise you that this game is pretty easy to get into. To rank up your villages, you have this list of tasks to complete, and then you report back to each of the village's season gods to get rewarded. As you're watching this, my tips and tricks video will probably be out already, so I'm gonna leave it for you in the pinned comments. Now, to cover the cost of feeding your villagers, you can use the shipping box to sell crops and items to get money in return, and you have one in every single village, or you can build one if you don't. Each village has specific development zones where you're allowed to build and use the carpenter's shop to craft buildings and decor. Each item has a different theme or aesthetic which contributes to your scenic score, and these give you special buffs, which makes decoration actually rewarding. In each village, you also have a dragon shrine where you can sleep, save, access your wardrobe, and storage box. A lot of you asked if you can decorate these shrines. You can't, but honestly, I feel like if I had to also worry about these on top of already managing my villages, it just wouldn't, like, it would feel like too much. So I was more than happy of just taking care of my villages and not have to worry about another thing to decorate. Now, in your villages, you have access to a notice board where villagers can leave requests for you. Once you complete a request, you can report back to the board to finish the job, and this system makes reporting these quests a lot quicker rather than having to track down villagers. By the way, you can also see like where everyone is on your map, which I really appreciate. You also have access to regional maps as well as a mini-map. Sometimes you can also pick requests from your villagers by talking to them, and fulfilling their requests increases your bond with them and gives you rewards, including decor, food, and building recipes. By the way, this last statement applies to villagers as in like the bachelors and the bachelorettes and the main story characters, not the other villagers that you hire to work on your village. A frequent question that popped up in my preview was about whether or not moving between villages was tedious, and I can safely say that it isn't. I usually don't like when farming games give me separate areas to work on, but with this, each village is so different, and the fact that decorating gives me stat boosts, it just makes me feel rewarded for my efforts, and you somehow start getting attached to each village and you want to just make sure that everyone is happy and healthy.
なんだ
Now, before we get to the romance, which I know a lot of you are excited for, hello, gorgeous human being, it's Miss Bubbles. If this video is enjoyable and you're learning from it, do me a favor and please check out the link in my description or my pinned comment. Simply clicking it and buying the game by using it will help the channel tremendously. So, the romance. There's an emphasis on bachelors and bachelorettes, as well as other villagers that you meet. When you interact with villagers, again, now I'm not talking about the ones that you hire, but the main story villagers, you get a few options like gifting them, having small talk, talking about their favorite drink, gushing about your latest fixation, etc. These interactions are random, and if for some reason you feel like I just don't want to do this, you can sometimes do a reroll so you can get new ones. The higher your bond is, the more interactions you're gonna get, but you're also gonna unlock more social activities using the skill tree. So for instance, you can unlock eating dinner together. Now, if a villager enjoys the activity, they're gonna give you some points, and if they don't, then they might actually take some of these points and be upset about it. You can check the Profiles tab to keep track of what gifts they like, hate, love, or dislike, as well as gather more personal information about them, and I love that the game will actually unlock bonding quests that you can do to get to know them better. These bonding quests can be tracked in your Quests tab to tell you exactly where you need to meet them and at which date and time. I like everyone so far, they're very interesting, and I actually seek them out because I want to know and learn more about them. You can also marry the various bachelors and bachelorettes and have children with them, but keep in mind that some of these marriage candidates require you to finish the story first and then you can marry them. I haven't married anyone yet. I'm just not putting my eggs in any baskets. I'm just putting them in all baskets, not just one. I'm being unbubbly and I'm trying to get to know all of them. I also want to show you the settings pretty quickly because I know a lot of you really care about them. So you can change how the graphics look, you can remap your controller and your keyboard and mouse keybinds. You can toggle party chatter between off, low, and normal. This one is perfect, especially for those of you who hate repetitive party dialogue. For motion sickness bubblies like me, I always recommend that you turn down the camera sensitivity, you turn off the depth of field. I also set the minimap rotation to dynamic, but I know some of you actually prefer it to be static. You also have English and Japanese voice acting. I mentioned in my preview that I preferred the Japanese voice acting in this game, which is pretty surprising because I usually go with an English dub since English is not my first language, and so reading subtitles can be a little bit too fast for me. Yet the Japanese voice acting is amazing, and we have so many cutscenes that play out, and the voice actors did an incredible job portraying each character's emotions. Now, sometimes you can choose between different dialogue options to respond back to what people are saying, but so far it doesn't seem like you can change the story's outcome no matter what you say. What about the Nintendo Switch? I mostly played on PC. This game doesn't have cross-save, so I had to pick one platform and stick to it. Yet I still wanted to let you guys know how it was on Switch. So I tried the game on Nintendo Switch, and my comment, if you watched my preview, still holds here. The game runs pretty well with no stutters, no lags, or any performance issues. And thank God there is no ugly depth of field that, a lot of companies are using to compensate. And this depth of field usually sets my motion sickness on a rampage. We don't have it, so I had no problem playing this. The only thing that I noticed is, again, just like the preview, there is a lot of pop-in. If you don't know what that means, this is when objects or textures suddenly pop into view as they are loading in. So rather than seeing them smoothly move into your view, you could see them here, they're just popping in. But I gotta say, it is a miracle that this game is running well on the Switch. And to be honest, I would imagine the pop-in will be resolved on Switch 2 due to better hardware. Again, I'm streaming it for you tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. So if you're new to my channel, what we do with my Before You Buy is we say, this game is for you if, not for you if, and my verdict to help you decide if you want to buy this. So this game is 100% for you if you like Rune Factory and you want a new spin-off title that's gonna hook you with its gameplay loop. You've got 40 hours to complete the main story alone and then up to 120 to complete everything. I know a lot of you said that this game is expensive, but in my opinion, it is worth every penny. It's for you if you love action RPGs that bring a hybrid of gameplay mechanics. So one moment you're bonding with your villagers, another you're micromanaging your village, next moment you're tending to crops, and then off you go to tame some monsters in a semi-open world that has plenty of things to do. I would say both this and Rune Factory 5 are the perfect starting point. It's also for you if you love decorating villages and using buildings and decor as stat boosts. However, this game is not for you if you're not a fan of combat in your farming games and you think that this is just a cozy game where you only farm and you don't need to fight any monsters. Sure, you can say that there is a story mode that will help you out, but at the end of the day, this game focuses on combat, elemental weaknesses, enhancing your equipment, as well as massive skill trees to boost stats to help you become stronger. It's also not for you if you don't like games that focus on villagers. You can avoid bonding with them if you want, but these are so charming and Rune Factory lovers play these games so they can bond with the villagers. And then it's also not for you if you don't like games with micromanagement elements that comes with the games for villages. As for me, this was one of my most anticipated games of 2025 and it exceeded all of my expectations. I'm having a blast. There's so much to do here. It is an absolute joy to play this. Guys, what a time to be alive for us lovers of RPG hybrids. We have so many good games coming out. We are eating good. And this game is going to be one that I'm going to be playing for a really long time. Remember to use my link to support my channel. You don't even have to buy it right now. Just clicking it will go a long way. Thank you, Marvelous, so much for sponsoring this video. And watch this video next for my Rune Factory tips and tricks. Thank you to my YouTube and Patreon bubblies who make videos like this possible. And a shout out goes to the Game Dimension, Will, Stella, and Jake Logan for going the extra mile. Until next time, stay bubbly.